Fantastic, thank you, Alan. We're going to be talking about stress and mindfulness as well, which is a way of dealing with stress. And mindfulness is all about awareness and attention. So I thought after our large breakfast we should begin with an awareness test. If you've done this test before and you've passed, just look smug and don't give anything away. But let's begin just with a little awareness test.
Does the team in white make? The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
So I think that's a cycling advert, but did anyone see the moonwalking bear? No. We think we're aware, don't we? But we're often not very aware. So just to give you a little bit more background. So I left university. I wasn't a Christian. I started working in Prince's Risborough for Lloyds Bank. Moved to High Wycombe after a few years. And there was a very beautiful young woman who worked there. And I thought I'd ask her out. So I asked her out. And she said, "Sean, I would go out with you, but you're not a Christian." So I was very challenged. I thought, there's a higher value than romantic love. What is that about? And there's another guy who worked in the bank who was a Christian. He said, "Well, you have to be a bit smart here. Why don't you come to my church and just check out?" So he went to a different church. That was Goldfield Baptist. He said, "We have Roy Castle playing the trumpet. We have hundreds of young people." So I thought he was lying because I had been to churches before where there were 3 people and a cat. So I went along, and I think Graham Kendrick was the guest worship leader. And I just thought, God has turned up. I'm never going back. The Holy Spirit was there too much. Thought I'm going to have to change my life if I go back there. But then after about a few weeks, I went back, became a Christian, got married, and ended up God saying, "I'd like you to be a preacher, go to Bible College." So that's what happened. And then after 3 years, I went to Stanmore Baptist Church, and I'm still there 20 years later. But after about 7 years there, this is very strange this should happen to a minister. I got very stressed, very anxious, very close to burnout. I literally felt I was falling apart and there was nothing I could do about it. And I don't know if any of you have had that experience or know someone who's had that experience. It's stressful in the extreme, and stress really was, if you like, the root cause of it. Now, at the time, I was also doing some part-time training at Roehampton University in counselling and psychotherapy. And I came across mindfulness in secular psychology and started practicing it and found it very helpful. At the same time, I was looking at some Christian sort of forms of prayer, and I came across a little book called The Jesus Prayer by an Anglican bishop called Simon Barrington-Wood. And that's a simple prayer that you say with your breath. "Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner." And you just say it repeatedly. And it, again, really helpful prayer. And I found that helpful just in managing my anxiety. And then I was looking at one of the pioneers of the Jesus Prayer was a Greek bishop called Diadochus of Photocea. Anyone heard of Diadochus of Photocea? No, thought not. Great guy. And I came across this phrase in one of his books, mindfulness of God. And in secular psychology and in Buddhism, where mindfulness is also big, there is no mention of mindfulness of God. And I thought, why not? So I started researching mindfulness and mindfulness of God. So right at the moment, I'm also doing a PhD at London School of Theology, looking at this area. John Kabat-Zinn was a medical doctor in the States who pioneered the use of mindfulness. And he said, because this is often the concern of Christians about mindfulness, is that there's a Buddhist form of it. He said saying mindfulness is Buddhist is a bit like saying gravity is British, because Isaac Newton discovered it. Mindfulness has been around in all the faith traditions. But because it is our God-given capacity for awareness and attention, and most of the time we're not aware, it's actually, let's put this back, it's just part of our God-given capacity. And we can be mindless, we can be mindful. So I don't know if you have the experience of ever going up to the top of the stairs in your house to get something, get to the top of the stairs and you can't remember what it was you went for, and you have to retrace your steps. So that's nothing wrong with your minds. There's no condition you need to worry about. It's called being on autopilot. And we're on autopilot a lot of the time. So I know guys who work Monday to Friday, Saturday they get up to drive to the supermarket and they find they've driven halfway to work. It's just being on autopilot. And a lot of the time that's where we spend our lives. So I could say to you this morning, and I'm not a televangelist, and I'm offering this for free, I could double your lifespan this morning. Anybody would like that? It's free, I'm giving it away. It's no trick. You don't have to touch the television and give me £3,000 in the post. Some of you, I could quadruple your lifespan.
Wow.
Literally, and whatever the word for 8 is. I could octopus your lifespan. Whatever it is. And why I can do that is the average person in a waking day of 16 hours spends 2 hours in the present moment, which is reality. The rest of the time they're in mental time travel, ruminating about something in the past that they can't change, worrying about something in the future that they can't control. So if you're age 30, like me, you've got 50 years to live in my heart, 50 years to live, you're only living 6 and a bit of those 50 years. 43 and a bit years you are spending in mental time travel, which is not reality. It's a complete waste of life. So one of the things about mindfulness is coming back to the present moment. And in Mark's Gospel, beginning of Mark's Gospel, Jesus talks about the kairos, the right time, the right moment, the opportune moment. So we know about chronos, chronological time, but there's also this Greek word, kairos, the right moment. And C.S. Lewis said the present moment is the point at which eternity touches time. If you want to get in touch with God, you need to be in the present moment, not in mental time travel. It's much harder for him to find you when you're doing that. So the present moment is really, really important, and we waste a lot of time not living in the present moment. So maybe you are feeling the heat with stress. This is interesting. This makes some women laugh if we look at men and mental health. I'll just rattle through these very quickly because I want to just... So our life expectation is 4.1 years lower than women. 3/4 of suicide deaths are men. 59% of university entrants are women. 95% of the prison population is men. Now interestingly, we also have a drive to succeed as well, to destroy ourselves. 65% of senior civil servants are men. 77% of FTSE 100 board members are men. 78% of MPs are men. 82% of the cabinet are men. But we still generally often behave in ways that is detrimental to our health and our well-being. So what is stress? Because that's what we're looking at this morning. So if we can jump through to stress. If you want a handout, by the way, let's give you those as well. If somebody who's been cycling and needs to warm down or cool down, and there's a little one here as well that everybody can have. So where are we? Yes, thank you. What is stress? This is the best definition It's a condition or feeling experienced when a person perceives that the demands placed on them exceed the resources the individual has available. So a lot of stress isn't about the reality of the circumstances we face. It is whether we perceive or not we can handle those circumstances. So you can be facing the same circumstance as somebody else, and that person can handle it because they perceive they can handle it, and we can't handle it because we perceive we can't. Does that make sense? So a lot of it is what's going on, if you like, in our heads. So I'm going to be going home after this. My wife is doing cleaning on the streets outside Sainsbury's in Stanmore. We're going to have lunch together. And I might be 5 minutes late, let's say. And she might say, poor Sean, he's stuck in traffic. I hope he's okay. Or she might say, do you know what, Sean's late because he doesn't love me. In our head, we misinterpret things all the time. Now, if I take my glasses off, I have no idea who's here. I can't literally see you. Now, just imagine this morning, I sit on my glasses, I break them, I'm walking down Stanmore High Street before I get here to get a cappuccino, and one of the members of my congregation waves to me from the other side of the road. And I don't see her because I'm not wearing my glasses. Do you know what she does? She gets straight on her phone, she phones her best friend Mabel, and she says, do you know what? That Sean, our minister, I've always thought he was really rude. Do you know what he's done? He's completely blanked me in the street. I feel so embarrassed and ashamed. Now you know the deacons, the trustees, don't you? Can you ring them and tell them what he has just done to me? You think I'm joking? This goes on all the time, and not just to ministers. Happens to bank managers. So, stress. Now, if I say to you on a normal day, how many thoughts would you have on average? It's not worthwhile thoughts, which is one a day. How many thoughts do you think you have on an average day? Hundreds. Yeah, thousands. About 70,000. Now, how many of those are negative?
69,000.
About 80%. So we have what neuroscientists would say is a negativity bias. Your brain is 3 to 4 times more sensitive to negative information than positive information. Negative information sticks like Velcro. Positive information slides out like Teflon. So I'm now going to give you 9 compliments and 1 criticism. And you will remember, no, I'm just joking, you will remember the 1 criticism. So we have this negativity bias. So from Christian theological point of view and the fall, you could argue that the structure of the fall is inbuilt actually into the way our brains work. So we get stressed because we have this negativity bias. So if we look at the flight or fight response, stress is a normal response to a threat, which if severe enough makes your body release adrenaline and cortisol. These increase your blood pressure, set up your body's fight or flight response. So far, so good. Now the problem is your brain delivers the same amount of stress if a lion came in now or your computer crashes. It doesn't distinguish. Now of course if the lion came in, you would be looking at your neighbour and seeing if you could run faster. And of course, our Anglican vicars here would be rushing towards the lion to wrestle it to the ground so the rest of us can escape. But a text message can deliver the same sort of stress. Because once you got a slightly ambiguous text message, or an email, even if you just got 1 bad email, 1 anonymous letter, the next time you get a letter, stress kicks in. And what we're living in is a hair trigger of stress response. So we're chronically stressed and we're not even aware of it. So a bit like we didn't see the dancing bear, most of the time we don't see what's going on inside us with stress. But physiologically, there's a lot going on and a lot of damage goes on when all these stress chemicals are constantly running through us. So what stresses us? Jobs, relationships, money worries. So in order of most stressful, death of a spouse or child, divorce, death of a family member, marital separation, becoming unemployed, major personal illness or injury. But actually it doesn't even need these sort of events to get us chronically stressed. So how do we react to stress as men? Rumination and avoidance. We do a lot of mental time travel. We avoid the situation. Now we've been conditioned, if you like, to be emotionally and physically tough. We're often disconnected from our emotions, so no sissy stuff, please. We often externalize it through anger, risk-taking, substance, alcohol abuse, overwork. And often something happens called the big bill. We're suddenly hit by the juggernaut, and we suddenly realize how stressed and ill we are. So, experiential avoidance, what is that? Well, I have a gift here that somebody sent to me in the post. I want it back, so there will be armed men at the door to make sure you don't run away with it. But there's a writer called Miriam Darlington, who's a nature writer, and she went around the country for a year looking for wild otters. Now, wild otters, if you've ever tried to find one, are really hard to find. So basically, you sit by a riverbank for 8 hours, you sneeze, and you miss it. So she's very aware and attentive, and I did a review of her book. So she sent me in the post some otter poo. Here I have some wild otter poo. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to just pass it around, but I do want it back. So I'm going to appoint Adrian, you're in charge of making sure this comes back to me. Okay? Nobody steals this or runs away.
You said that last time, someone stole it.
Yeah, no. You have to get fresh supplies. You don't have to smell it, but when was the last time somebody offered you the chance to sniff wild otter poo? Anyone had the chance before? No. I mean, fox poo is disgusting, isn't it? You have a dog. My dog likes rolling in fox poo. That I do not recommend, especially when you have to wash the dog. But this is interesting, so I'm going to pass that around. Now, when we do this, sometimes people avoid it. I'm not sniffing wild otter poo. And that's experiential avoidance. Why would you not want to sniff wild otter poo? I don't understand. But we avoid things all the time. And what we really like to avoid is difficult emotions, difficult situations. So somebody might tell you that they're not an angry person, but whenever there's conflict, they withdraw. Withdrawal is a sign of anger. They don't think it is, but it is. As that goes round. Now we need, if you like, because men are under criticism from all sides, we need a model of how to be a man. So Jesus is the sort of heart of my new book, putting on the wakeful one. So Ephraim the Syrian in the 5th century called Jesus the wakeful one. And he said, when we get baptized, we put him on. So it looks as Jesus is. So it's very much mindfulness is a Christian idea as well. But at the beginning of Mark's Gospel, if you know the story, John the Baptist says, after me will come one more powerful than I. Now literally in the Greek, the stronger one. And that is an echo of Isaiah, where Isaiah talks about God as the stronger one, or the warrior, not the warrior, the warrior of God. So at the beginning of Mark's Gospel, Jesus is called the warrior. Now sadly, we have pictured Jesus as floating around in a nightie, being meek and mild and nice to everyone. But that's not what Mark says. He was the warrior. So it is okay to be strong as a man. But he was in touch with his emotions. So Mark's Gospel is full of Jesus being compassionate, Jesus being angry, Jesus being sad. It's okay to be in touch with our emotions. And he went out to a solitary place where he ate ice cream. No, it doesn't say that. It says where he prayed. So the first thing he did was pray. That's one of the ways he handled stress. He went away from people and he found silence. So that's, if the Son of God needed to do that, I think that's an important thing for us. So I don't know if you like live music. It was my wife's birthday on Wednesday and we went to see Wicked, which was Wicked. And something special about live music, isn't there, and live performance. If you go and see an orchestra play, when do they tune up? At the beginning. Now, if they played and then tuned up at the end, you'd think something a bit odd. But that's what we do if we tune up at all. You need to tune up at the beginning of the day. That's how we learn to handle our stress, if you like. So that's really important. Now, the disciples came to him in Mark 1, and in the Greek it says, literally they hunted him down. Do you know that feeling? You've been hunted down, text. You know, when I worked in the bank, they introduced a rule which we were incensed about. This was some time ago. They said that when a customer wrote to us, we had to reply by letter within 3 days. And we thought that was absolutely outrageous. What was wrong with a month, which is what we used to do? And now, I mean, now people can even tell if you haven't yet read their email. Yeah, and they expect, you know, you're on holiday in Lanzarote and you're expected to reply to your work. You know, it's crazy, isn't it? We get hunted down by this virtual world in which we live. And the virtual world is really causing a problem, not just for us, but for young people as well, if you have children. So children can spend 7 to 10 hours after school on a range of virtual screens. And what it is destroying is what is known as deep attention, the ability to focus their attention, sustain their attention, switch their attention when they get distracted. And they're suffering from hyperattention, but we are as well. We need constant streams of information coming at us. We get easily bored. We're checking our Facebook, Twitter, emails every 5 minutes. So our ability to be attentive and aware, to see the dancing bear, to see the stress, is really damaged by the world in which we live. So I'm going to quickly, see how we're doing on time, rattle through these identifying signs of stress. But what I would say is take it away and go to somebody you trust and say, do you see any of these signs of stress in me? Because you're basically going to deny that you have any of these signs of stress. So what have we got? Psychological signs: inability to concentrate, memory lapses, easily distracted, worrying, negative thinking, depression, anxiety. Emotional signs: tearful, irritable, mood swings, extra sensitive to criticism, so defensive, feeling out of control, lack of motivation, angry, frustrated. Physical signs: aches, pains, muscle tension, grinding teeth when you're asleep, frequent colds, allergies, skin conditions, constipation, diarrhea, IBS, weight loss or gain, hyperventilation, dizziness, palpitations, panic attacks, heart problems, high blood pressure. So a lot of things physically because of the stress chemicals. Behavioral signs: no time for relaxation or pleasurable activities, accidentally, getting accidental, forgetting things, relying on alcohol, smoking, caffeine, becoming a workaholic, poor time management, absenteeism, social withdrawal, relationship problems, not sleeping at night. That's tricky, isn't it? And I just want to read you a story, a true story. Maybe you've experienced this as well. So James is driving to an important meeting for which he's late. Anybody had that experience? He's feeling tensed, hassled, and not particularly mindful. A long line of cars has already built up as he approaches the traffic lights on a busy junction. Just as the line begins to close up at the red signal, another car races up from behind him, squeezes past at the last moment, and takes James's place in the queue. Anybody had that experience? Now, this is very important. James is now precisely 1 car's length further back from the lights than he would have been if the car had not pushed in. In fact, he's 4.2 meters further back. And at an average urban speed of around 15 miles per hour, or 40.234 meters per second, that means he'll be more or less 1/10 of a second later for the meeting than he would have been if that guy hadn't pushed in. But it doesn't feel like that to James. In that moment, from his perspective, it's a complete disaster. I'm going to be really late, people are so rude, his shoulders tighten, his hands clench on the wheel, and his mind begins to race. What a mess, how can I be so late? They'll never take me seriously, it's so unprofessional. His stomach starts to churn, he can feel heartburn coming on, his whole body starts to tighten up and he begins to sweat. See all the physical symptoms of stress. And you see how we can misinterpret. You're 1/10 of a second later, but boy, are you stressed. So what is the solution? Well, there's some very practical things you can do, and we'll give you those, and then we'll come on to our number one tip. So, managing time more effectively, healthier lifestyle, know your limitation. What causes you stress? Different things cause us stress. Some things stress me that don't stress other people. But what is it for us? Avoid unnecessary conflict. Take time out to relax and recharge. So meet friends. Avoid alcohol, nicotine, caffeine as coping mechanisms. Now, if any of you want to go and have another cup of coffee, we'll have a... Just kidding. So much of what causes us stress, if we jump to this bit, is out of our control. But the number one cause is our perception of what is happening to us. That is within our control. But most of the time, because of this negativity bias, we are overly negative in our interpretation of things. Now, one of the answers that's been found to be very helpful is mindfulness, which has psychological, Christian and Buddhist approaches. It also has Jewish approaches, so I've been talking to Jewish rabbis. Also has Muslim approaches, I've been talking to Muslims about what they do. But I would say basically it's our God-given capacity for attention and awareness. It's something that you have built within. So you can be mindful or you can be mindless. It's your choice, and you can learn how to do it. And of course, what did Jesus say? In Matthew 6, he said, do not worry. Now, interestingly, in the Greek, it is present continuous tense, which means, he says, don't get in a state of continuous worry. He knows you're going to worry, but don't get into the state of continuously worrying. That's when the damage happens. And he says, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has enough trouble of its own. So what he's saying is, focus on today and what you've got to deal with today. Don't keep jumping back and forwards in time. So mindfulness, if we move on to that, is present moment awareness. But much of the time we do mental time travel. So I'm going to give you a little mindful exercise now to take home, practice and do. Now, I don't know if you have children. I have two children. My daughter Amy is 16, so you know that she is now doing GCSEs and what that means for her stress levels. My son is 18. We timed it really badly, so he's now doing A levels. So we have this house, two teenagers, one doing GCSEs and one doing A levels. And one of the things I've given them is a little breathing exercise called 7-11. So you might want to try this. You just focus on your breathing. Breathe normally. As you breathe in, count very quickly to 7. As you breathe out, you count to 11. So slightly longer. So don't stretch it out or you'll faint. Just normal breathing. As you breathe in, count to 7. As you breathe out, slightly longer, count to 11. So just try that. A few breaths. Okay. Did you notice anything? What did you notice?
Still breathing.
Calm. Yeah. You come back. You see, your body is always in the present moment. Your mind can be everywhere. Your body is never in any other place but the present moment. When you focus on your breathing, you come back to your body. You come back to the present moment. What they found with just paying attention to your breath. And by the way, breath belongs to everybody. It's not just a Buddhist thing. If it was a Buddhist thing, we'd all have to stop breathing. Okay, it belongs to everyone. We can all breathe. Most of the time we do it out of our awareness. But neuroscience says that each emotion you feel has a particular breathing pattern. So anger, sadness, stress, anxiety, you will have a particular breathing pattern. So when you start paying attention to your breath, you suddenly become aware of what it is you're feeling, even if it's a difficult emotion. So the breath is a very helpful barometer for noticing your emotions as well. So that's really important. But when they go into an exam and their amygdala, their stress response kicks off, what happens when your smart brain, when your alarm brain kicks off is your smart brain switches on. When you get angry, your smart brain switches opposite. If you got angry and they wired you up for neuroimaging studies, you would see your smart brain switching on. Now the problem is when you're angry, you think that your smart brain is heightened, and that you're more aware and more right than you've ever been in your whole life, but you're not. Your smart brain has switched off. So there's no point trying to reason with an angry person because their smart brain is not working. But when you focus on your breathing, it switches the alarm brain off and switches your smart brain back on. So if you're in an exam, anyone who's doing exams, it's a very helpful thing just to do 7-11. Because if you're sitting in an exam and your smart brain is switched off, it's not very good, is it? So that's important. So the central insight of mindfulness, if we jump to that, is this. And this is a riddle for you. Jesus liked riddles. He told them all the time in parables. And I think if Jesus came back today and he started preaching in churches, he would say, no, stop. We don't like stories and riddles and parables. We're going to send you off to Bible college, where you learn rational, propositional, logical teaching. When you can do a sermon in 3 points, all beginning with the same letter, then we will let you preach in our churches. He liked riddles. So am I my thoughts and feelings? Are you your thoughts and feelings? That's the riddle. What do we think? It's not a trick question. You can say anything you like.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Any other?
I think there's more.
Okay. I think there's more. So the answer is sometimes we think we are our thoughts and feelings. So imagine there's a 15-year-old girl standing here. She's looking in the mirror. She thinks she weighs 15 stone. She weighs 6 stone. So she is her thoughts and feelings, and it gets her into trouble. See what I mean? So we get what is called cognitively fused to our thoughts and feelings. So we have an angry thought. We look at life from that thought. But actually we are bigger than our thoughts and feelings. We are part of them, but we are bigger than them, and we can learn to observe them. We're the only one of God's creatures who can observe our own thoughts and feelings. But if you are fused to depressed thought, an anxious thought, an angry thought, you get into trouble. If we defuse from them, we notice them, we realize it's just a thought, difficult thought, but it's just a thought, then we have a breathing space, we have a different experience of it. So the basic shift in perspective, sometimes people say to me, I'm an angry person, I'm an anxious person, I'm a depressed person. And I say, no, you're having anxious thoughts. You're having angry thoughts, you're having depressed thoughts. And that's the shift that you can get when you practice mindfulness. So it's all about shifting mental gear, if we have that slide. So you have 2 mental gears. Who is cycling today? How many gears have you got? 27. You know, your cycle is more advanced than us men. We only have 2. 2 mental gears. Doing, which is rational critical thinking, which is where we are most of the time, and then being. Now being is what happens naturally when you cycle. You come back to your body, you come back to your senses. So I had a guy who's a friend of mine that I talked to about silence, and he tried it and he fell asleep. He said, that's no good, what do I do? So I said, well, you like running, so just run. And then he started running, but running with silence, and then he found he could shift mental gear. Does that make sense? So you don't have to, you could, if you're a carpenter, you could just make a wooden cross. That will help you shift mental gear. It's very simple things like that. Now, just to give you an idea about this, there was a woman psychologist, and she had this theory that the more sex men had, the happier they were. I don't know where she got that idea from, but that was her theory. And she got a group of men together. Maybe it was CBMM, I don't know. And she said to them, and they were very brave men because they were willing to share about their experiences. She said to them, who has sex once a day? And a few men put their hand up, and they looked really happy. She said, okay, who has sex once a week? And some more men put their hand up, and they looked quite happy actually, they looked okay. And then she said, once a month, and there were a few other men, and they didn't look quite so happy. And then she thought, all right, this is really going well for my theory. I'll be really brave, once a year. this one man stood up. He didn't just stand up, he ran round the room, he jumped, he danced, he screamed with delight. And she said, oh, it's completely destroyed my theory, what's going on? She said, why are you so excited? He said, it's today! It's today! We spend too much time worrying about something that's going to happen or not happen in the future, rather than living in the present moment and enjoying whatever it is we've been given in the present moment. You know, life is too short to waste in this mental time travel. Really, really enjoy the present moment. So that's really, really important. Nearly there. Being mode is what it's called, this other mental gear. We can enter it, if we jump to that. Thank you. Through mindful awareness practices, you know, you could be carving a cross, you could be running, you could be on your cycle. There are other things you can do. You can eat this breakfast mindlessly. That's why we call it fast food, don't we? Or you can eat it slowly. So there is a slow food movement in Italy. I think they also invented the slow sex movement, but I'm not sure about that. You know, why rush these things? And you can actually really increase your lifespan. So mindfulness of the body and breath. So sometimes in Christianity we've done what is called spirit good, body bad. We've split it. You know, Jesus was born in a body, so the body is good. Everything we have is fallen, but we mustn't split mind and body. And I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Alistair McGrath, who's a professor at Oxford. He has 653 PhDs. You can't know he only got 2, but you can't argue. And he says God is only accessed through the material, through the body, through your God-given senses. So how many senses do you have? And we'll close with this. How many senses do you have? What a trick question. 5. Okay, which are? Yeah. Yes. Okay, brilliant. So Daniel Siegel, who's an interperson neurobiologist, would say we have 8 senses. Your 6th sense is that you can tell me of something what is going on in your body. So some of you are feeling sleepy, some of you got a headache, some of you got backache, some of you got pain in your neck, and I'm not talking about somebody you're married to. I can say that. Sure. All the food has been cooked by Ben and you're man, that's fine. 7th sense is you can tell me something of what you're thinking and feeling. Can't you? Not all of what you're thinking and feeling. In fact, 90% of what you're thinking and feeling is out of your awareness. But you can tell me something. Your 8th sense is a relational sense. You can pick up what other people are thinking and feeling because they leak. That's why you can have ministers and counsellors and things like that. Doctors, nurses. Now I would say you have a 9th sense, which is an awareness of the presence of God. But when you genuinely come into the presence of God, which may be having breakfast at the golf club on the 11th of June, and then coming here for the Holy Spirit, all your 9 senses are at work. And that is called wonder, awe, or reverence. That's the true meaning of fear in the Bible, is when suddenly you realize every part of you, every sense realizes you're in the presence of the one who made you. So that's really important, it's using all of those senses. So there are lots of resources you can look at if you want to know. This guy, Sean Lambert, has a few books. We have some outside. I have free podcasts on my website, lots of other things. And on your handout, if you want a basic introduction to secular mindfulness, Mark Williams and Danny Penman has a very good book. Ellen Langer has written a book. She's done 40 years of study of mindfulness without meditation. Now the only thing is sometimes mindfulness practice is not for everyone at every stage of their life. So if you have a mental health condition, just check with your doctor before you try and practice. Because and reality is difficult. And it's you might suddenly be facing difficult emotions that you tried to avoid all your life. And it can be overwhelming. So you just need to check that out. But what I found from this experience of falling apart was that it, both from a mindfulness of God, which I'm looking at, and secular mindfulness, it sort of glued me back together. And for that, I am very, very grateful. But I would say, as well as men, one of the best things we can do is talk to somebody else if we feel stressed. Or say to them, if you trust them, do you think I'm stressed? And they hopefully will give you an honest answer. So last week was Mental Health Awareness Week. It was all about relationships and basically saying the foundation stone of good health for any of us is to be in relationship with other people. And that's why church community is so important. So I just want to finish there. Any questions, any thoughts? We're pretty much slightly over, but that's fine. I blame Alan. He was getting a bit.
Will.
Could you comment about sleep and deep sleep and mindful sleep?
Yeah, so absolutely. So sleep, I mean a lot of people who basically struggle with sleep. Anyone here struggling with sleep? Yeah. So a lot of that is about our minds refusing to switch off, that ruminating. So one of the things that I do, and you can get this actually if you want this, I've done a sort of, it's called a body scan meditation. I can send it to you. So if you speak to Alan and get my email, I can forward that to you. I do this every night, not to try to get to sleep, because then if it doesn't work, you get really cross. You say, I'm never going to do this again. So basically, with the body scan, what you're doing is just trying to go through every part of your body to relax it. And it's just switches that, ruminative, endless cycle in your head off. You come back to your body. You send different chemicals running through your body, and if you practice it, I find it improves my sleep amazingly. So that's just one possible thing that you can do. The other thing that's really helpful is, switch off screens and things at a reasonable time because they buzz you up. If you're drinking coffee at 10 o'clock and wondering why you can't get to sleep at 10:30, again, not a good sign. But that's what I would say, body scan, and I can email that to you via So, yeah, no worries. And also physical exercise. The more physical exercise you do, get a Fitbit. I did 18,000 steps the other day and slept like a baby. So really good. And you see, this will measure your sleep, it will measure your heart rate and stuff like that. Now you can slow your heartbeat down, can't you? You know that. But your mind has beats, if you like, and when you're stressed it's doing this, but you can slow the beat of your mind down. You can't empty your mind, that's not possible physiologically. Your mind is always filling up with thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, all the time. But you can slow that down. And in the slowness, that's when you're not stressed. Does that make sense? So just as you can slow your heart down with exercise, so you can slow your mind down.
One of the ideas you recommended was to know your limitations.
Yes.
And in which case, all of us could just sit back and say, I'm too busy. You didn't do that when you recovered from your stress. How is a good way to judge your priorities and assess which are the most important and worthwhile things and which are things to be abandoned?
Yeah.
Do you rely on your wife, for example, to tell you that?
A wise person, absolutely. Yeah, behind every successful man is a surprised woman, is what they say about them. No. It's a very, very, very good question. And I think a lot of the time we think that we have no limitations until we hit the brick wall at 100 miles an hour. So I had to slow down. It was a necessity. And fortunately, I found something that would help me do that. So one of the things why we are too busy is because it helps us avoid important things. So that's one of the things we have to say is, what am I avoiding? What do I need to look at? And what I found as well, and this is counterintuitive, the more time I give to physical, mental, spiritual health, the more creative, more energy, more time I have to do what's really important. So a lot of the time we are running on empty. And so actually what we offer to people is a lot less than what we would like to offer. So I think we have to change the lifestyle and build in that, looking after ourselves, which we don't do very well. And when we do that, we suddenly find, I say, more creativity, more energy, more time for people. And actually, more than success, it's people that matters. So, when I worked in the bank in High Wycombe, my bank manager was a really great guy, was retiring at 65. He had a party. He stood up at the party, said, I've worked 45 years in the bank. I've saved my money. These are the things that I put off from my retirement. These are all the things that I wanted to do, never had time to do, and now I'm going to do them. He sat down, had a heart attack, and died on the spot. He never made it to all those things he was going to. Don't put it off. We have to do it now, because it will be too late. So yeah, helpful question. Yeah.
You mentioned that earlier on in terms of I don't know, the proportion of negative thoughts.
Yes.
We have a lot of negative thoughts. I don't know, I mean, if we look back in our evolution, is it not innate with us to concentrate on negative thoughts? Because negativity in our environment, if we're aware of it, hopefully we can avoid death.
Yeah, so that, from an evolutionary psychological perspective, we if you like, evolved this strong part of the brain to react very quickly when the saber-toothed tiger came looking for us. But the problem is, we no longer live in that sort of environment, but we still have that triggering. But we also have this beautiful smart brain that a lot of the time we don't operate within. And in Western culture, we've emphasized and we value rational critical thinking, not awareness. But actually, all your thoughts and feelings are held in awareness. We're just not aware of it. So it's a much bigger capacity that we need to, and it's just basically coming back to your body and your senses and living in them. But there are so many stories of people who are just completely unaware of what's going on in their body until suddenly wham. And there were lots of warning signals they just didn't pick up on. And that's, you don't get there from rational critical thinking, you only get there with being attentive to what's going on. So it's basic, normal, everyday stuff that I'm talking about. It's not esoteric, mystical. Yeah, it's good point. Yeah?
Did you get your otter poo back?
Yeah, where is my octopus? Thank you. Did anyone have a sniff of it?
Yeah.
What is it? It's nice, isn't it? Yeah, sweet. When it's fresh, it's a bit like jasmine tea. It even looks a bit like jasmine tea, so you have to be careful when you put it in the cupboard that you don't get the wrong one out.